What's going on, everyone? It is the Derf, and today I am bringing you an absolutely busted Titan build that I am affectionately calling Volatile Zeus. This build features all of the key aspects you would expect to see from a Titan. Lots of damage, lots of just absolute demolishing of the battlefield, and also incorporates some new aspects available through the artifact that make this thing absolutely bonkers to use. You can spread Volatile as well as electrifying the battlefield, basically being unkillable, and it is extremely easy and fun to use. So if you've been looking for a great Titan video for builds, this is the stop for you. As always, if you find anything helpful with this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know a Guardian in need who is looking for a great Titan build, send them my way or share this video with them. As always, I will have a dim link in the description. You can also get at me on my Discord. I'll have that link in the description. And if you haven't heard by now, we have hit over 500 subscribers on the channel. So I am now able to offer memberships to bring additional content and perks to my subscribers and viewers. So if that interests you, feel free to sign up, but don't think that if you don't, you're going to see any less content being posted because of it. My goal is to help as many people as possible, and that is exactly what drives me. So I'm going to get into it. This one is extremely fun, and I'm going to have some different build testing sites for you to see. So the Striker Titan subclass, the super of choice, everybody's favorite, Thunder Crash. For the abilities, you are going to absolutely want to have the Rally Barricade. When you stand behind this barricade, you increase weapon reload speed, stability, and range, and it draws hostile fire as long as you are behind it. For the movement ability, I prefer the Strafe Lift, but you can use whatever you prefer. The Thunderclap is the melee of choice that I would highly recommend that you use with this build. For the grenade, I recommend using the Flashbang Grenade. You want to be able to stun champions, and you want to be able to blind enemies as well. So with the Flashbang Grenade, you can stun unstoppable champions and blind surrounding targets. For aspects, Touch of Thunder is numero uno on my list. Your Flashbang, Pulse Lightning, and Storm Grenades have enhanced functionality. For Flashbang Grenade specific, it emits an additional blinding flash on bounce. So if you don't have every enemy by the grenade when it goes off, but you do have some enemies there after it goes off, you have an additional chance to blind your enemies, as well as stunning the unstoppable champion you are probably throwing it at. The new arc aspect, Storm's Keep. Cast your class ability to grant a moderate amount of bolt charge stacks to you and nearby allies. While behind your barricade, you and allies gain stacks of bolt charge over time, and your weapons can discharge max stacks of bolt charge. Now, if you see my previous videos, you know that I really like using Le Monarch, and this is going to be the case for this. So we're going to get down right to it, why Le Monarch is going to pair beautifully with this, but it is not the only weapon that's going to be able to discharge max stacks of bolt charge. So keep that in mind. For the Fragments, Spark of Frequency, while amplified, the effects are increased and you gain increased stacks of bolt charge from all sources. This is in relation to your melee hits. And they increase your equipped weapons reload speed and stability for a short duration. It doesn't matter what weapon you have equipped. As long as you are getting melee hits, you are going to get increased stacks of bolt charge, and your weapons are going to benefit from that greatly. Next up, we have Spark of Brilliance. Defeating a blinded target with precision damage creates a blinding explosion. I'm taking a plus 10 bump to intellect, but honestly, it doesn't really matter on this build as long as you are above a T3. And reminder, when blinded, unstoppable champions become stunned. Spark of Ions is the next fragment. Defeating a jolted target or defeating a target with bolt charge creates an ionic trace. Ionic traces grant you ability energy, so the ability to actually generate them is going to be pivotal here. Spark of Amplitude is the final arc fragment, and this is a toss-up between a couple of them. Rapidly defeating targets while you are amplified creates an orb of power. The reason I have this as opposed to other options, which I'm going to go over here in a second, I want as many orbs of power as possible. In most instances, when you are pinned down in a gunfight with the enemies, eventually you are going to be moving on to a new location. When you do that, typically you run around, pick up your orbs of power, get your abilities as charged up as you can, and potentially get some health back. Health is at a premium if you are running the Nether Arena, which is what I have this built for. So the more orbs of power that you have, theoretically, the more health you can get back at any given time, which is why this takes my fourth and final fragment slot as opposed to others. If you were to substitute this out because you aren't worried about your health or orbs of power being generated, you can substitute this with the Spark of Resistance, give yourself a plus 10 to strength, and reduce the incoming damage when you are surrounded by enemies. You also could put on your Arc Grenades Jolt targets, and you could also put on Spark of Beacons. While you are amplified, your Arc Special or Heavy Weapon Final Blows create a blinding explosion. You could easily put this on and equip Arc Heavy Weapons and get an extra way to stun unstoppable champions. So those are a few ways that you can modify this to fit something other than what I have. For stats, the order of focus that I have is Resilience, Discipline, and Strength, in that order. The reason that you want your Resilience maxed out is because it ties directly to your class ability, which is your ability to cast your Barricade, which you are going to be using a lot. Next up is going to be your Discipline. While you're behind that barricade, you want to be able to throw out your flashbang grenade to blind as many enemies in front of you as possible. In doing so, you will gain possible ionic traces and an edge on whoever you are firing at. And last but not least is Strength. You want to be able to get your melee back as fast as possible. It is not as necessary to get this back as fast as possible because it is a distance melee. And once we get into the armor, you're going to see all your abilities are going to tie into one another. I'm going to go over weapons first so you can see what possible options you have to pair with this. In the kinetic weapon slot, I highly recommend using something that can stun unstoppable champions. Any one of these 4 fusion rifles is an excellent option. You can get the Riptide from Lord Shaxx. You can get the Arvandal from Banshee, the gunsmith in the tower, although the only bummer with this one is you can't enhance it. Of course, the scatter signal is a staple in a lot of my builds. And then Deliverance, which you can get from Vow of Disciple Raid. If you are not going to be seeing unstoppable champions... Oh, and one other thing I forgot to mention, you can also put on the Rake Angle, which was introduced to us last season. Get something... This comes with Chill Clip as well as Rhyme Stealer if you wanted to. You can farm this when it's in rotation for Nightfalls. I understand GMs are not available yet, but once they are, that's when you can get one of these Rake Angles if you haven't before. If you are not going to be seeing unstoppable champions, I highly recommend putting on either a sidearm like the Call, Tanash's Mastery, or Mikkel's Reverence, or putting on Rufus's Fury. You're going to be generating a lot of orbs of power, so you're going to be able to take advantage of unraveling rounds if you so choose. For the energy weapons, there are only 2 options that I recommend for this build. Number 1 is going to be Le Monarch. If you haven't heard by now, the poison that is spread between the arrows between enemies, it will proc a lightning strike from your fully charged bolt charge in the event that it procs while you are firing this weapon. In other words, you can consider this an extra ability in your arsenal. So if you're standing behind your barricade firing Le Monarch, which you're going to see here in my demonstration, on top of throwing out your grenade, using your thunderclap, and then eventually using your super, you're going to be able to just absolutely electrify the battlefield while weakening it and spreading poison. Affectionately, why I'm calling this character Volatile Zeus. Once you get the catalyst finished, rapidly defeating targets triggers health regeneration. So another way that I think that this is going to pair well with the fragment that we were just debating in the class setup, you're going to be able to get additional ways to get your health back by using this weapon to clear out adds. Also, intrinsically built into this weapon is going to be the ability to stun overload champions. Your backup option is going to be Graviton Lance. The reason for this is its ability to proc Volatile very quickly, but it's not really going to be much quicker than Le Monarch, so it's just going to depend on what you want to do more. If you prefer pulse rifles to bows, that could be a reason. If you like Le Monarch and its poison ability, it's going to pair even better than arguably the splash damage that Graviton Lance is doing when you make an enemy disappear. But just pick whatever one you want the most. Honestly, once you see how it functions, I think you're going to want to go with Le Monarch over anything else because you have the barricade in front of you. For the heavy slot, there are a lot of options that you can use. Certainly, any Void machine gun is going to do you very well. Commemoration, Retrofit Escapade, or Hammerhead are three very good options. You can also put on an Arc machine gun. Watchful Eye is dropping like hotcakes. Wellspring and Rolling Storm is a nice combination. Field Prep and Jolting Feedback is a very nice combination. Or if you have problems keeping it on target, you can always opt for Dynamic Sway Reduction and Rolling Storm. You can also put on Eleactic Principle if you have a good crafted one. And you can always use Promemoria if you want to take more advantage of the Unraveling Rounds buff that you can get from the artifacts. Now, depending on what heavy weapon that you choose, you're going to want to decide how you want to mod this artifact. So I'm going to go through how I have it set up right now and how I can go through and change it if need be. First and foremost, I have Unstoppable Fusion, Overload Machine Guns, and Piercing Sidearms selected in the first perk. If I do opt to use the rake angle, I will take off the Unstoppable Fusion and put on the Unstoppable Glaive. In the second column, I have Volatile Marksman, which is going to pair beautifully with Le Monarch or Graviton. Unraveling Orbs, which is going to pair very nicely with a Strand Fusion Rifle, or you can use a heavy machine gun or whatever. If you pick up that Orb of Power and you're firing a strand weapon, it's going to grant you Unraveling Rounds. If you do opt for an arc weapon in your heavy, you can always swap that out for Overclock and Load. While you are amplified or have bolt charge, arc weapons gain increased handling and reload speed. In the third column, I have Hold the Line, as well as King's Vestige. King's Vestige is because I'm going to be in the Nether Arena quite often, and Hold the Line is because most of my heavy weapon choices are going to revolve around machine guns. But if you do have a glaive in the kinetic slot, you will benefit from increased reload speed and stability with that as well. And final blows with each of those heal you. In the fourth column, I have Maligned Harvest, which is rapidly applying Volatile causes your next instance of void weapon damage to create a weakening burst. Horde Shuttle, which is damaging unraveled targets with a weapon occasionally spawns a Threadling. And Flashover. When you gain maximum bolt charge, you also become amplified. Lightning bolts deal more damage. The reason I have Flashover selected on this but not on other builds is because I'm going to be gaining bolt charge simply by standing behind my barricade. Once I reach that maximum threshold, my lightning bolts that I'm going to deal are also going to deal more damage, and that's going to make me amplified. So this is an excellent option to pair with an Arc Titan for that very reason. In the fifth column, Heavy Ordnance Regeneration is going to be numero uno that I select for what I want from my build. Beefier enemies or bosses. That's why I'm going to select this one first. Void Flux, defeating weakened targets with a void weapon applies Volatile to nearby targets. Powerful targets increase the radius of the explosion. Now this one is going to be selected once I get it unlocked because I'm going to be maining Le Monarch. But if I have my Commemoration or Retrofit or whatever Void machine gun on, that's going to proc this as well. So another way you can spread Volatile, as well as give yourself Volatile rounds to be able to pierce barrier champions' shields. If you do opt for anything else, you can always put on particle reconstruction to pair with your fusion rifle. And these other two, defibrillating blast is going to be more so if you are using arc machine guns. But I don't think it's really going to apply here because I'm going to be relying heavily on the void aspect of this inside my arc build. For armor, the general mod, pick whichever one best suits your needs. Heavy ammo finder, a staple in most of my builds. Dynamo, reduces super cooldown while using your class ability near targets. You're going to be near targets quite a bit because of your barricade. So dropping your barricade often or regularly is going to give you super energy back in return. Void Siphon. Make sure you have Void Siphon equipped if you are running Le Monarch and Graviton. Because it's not going to be a harmonic resonance, you're going to have to make sure you select the Void one. When you do that, you're going to have to make a decision if you want to put Dynamo on or not. If you don't mind the increased waiting time for your super back, then you can drop this and put on a different general mod here and switch it out for something else here. You can always put Radiant Light or Powerful Friends, whichever you think is best, or you can put on a Harmonic Siphon if you are running an arc heavy weapon. For the gauntlets, put the general armor mod on that you need the most, and I fully recommend putting on heavy-handed, firepower, and bolstering detonation. The reason that you have heavy-handed and firepower on is for the orbs of power, and the reason you have bolstering detonation on is because you want your class ability back as quickly as possible. So when you throw that grenade from behind your barricade, it's going to give you increased regen for your class ability, which is your barricade. You're also not going to need a loader mod, which is going to be another 3 energy if you choose, since you're running a bow that has snapshot sights like Le Monarch. The exotic armor of choice is going to be Heart of Inmost Light. Now, this is not going to be the most popular choice. If you look around at some of the big names out there, they are using other things, but that doesn't discount from what Heart of Inmost Light does for you. Using an ability, grenade, melee, or barricade, empowers the other 2 abilities. Empowered means abilities have faster regen, melees and grenades do more damage, and barricades have more hit points. So I'm going to benefit on all 3 fronts for my abilities simply by using this chest armor. And that is why I've selected this over possible other selections that people are using, because I want my melees and grenades to do more damage. I want my barricades to have more hit points, and I want to be able to get my whatever ability I need back faster by using my abilities equally. So even though I'm going to be using my barricade a lot, it's going to help me get my grenade and my melee energy back even faster. So theoretically, without knowing what this is going to look like, or if this is your first time seeing this, your theoretical gameplay loop is either putting your barricade down first or throwing your grenade out first. What that's going to do is empower the other, one or the other, whichever way you go, and then get you started in battle. Once you do that and you start gaining bolt charge, you're going to be discharging lightning strikes all over the battlefield, and you're going to be empowering your super as well. So that's a little precursor to what you're going to see in the build test. And one thing I forgot to mention about the chest armor, make sure you have your damage resistances added in there, and then whatever heavy weapon you are using, put on a reserve mod to give yourself some extra ammo. For the leg armor, pretty standard setup here. Put whatever general mod you need for your armor, and then I recommend putting recuperation on first. Next up, I'm going to recommend either innervation or insulation. Both of them you won't go wrong with because you've got mods to pair with those, your arms that we just went over. So innervation is probably what I'm going to use most, but if you decide you want to use insulation, you're going to benefit equally from. And then I always recommend putting on an absolution just so you can get some extra cooldown effect from any orb of power that you pick up from any ability. And because you're going to be using all of them, you're going to benefit immensely from that. For the class item, put whatever general armor mod you need in there. I also recommend putting Font of Restoration. Now, Font of Restoration is going to be hit or miss with some people. Because you're not a warlock, it's not going to affect your class ability. So if you are okay with your recovery and you are farming the Nether Arena, you could consider dropping this for a distribution, which is reduce all ability cooldowns when using your class ability in your targets. You can use this for a bomber. You can use this for another Reaper, or you could use this however you want. So that's going to free up this extra slot to do virtually whatever you want with it. You could also use Powerful Attraction, which is automatically collecting nearby orbs of power. That might be a popular choice since you're going to be standing behind your barricade. It really is up to you. Titan with this build makes it incredibly versatile so that your Titan mark essentially does nothing but power you up on top of powering you up. So in just seeing this, I mean, a distribution would be an excellent substitute. But really, whatever you find that you're using the most is probably going to be your best option. You can also, like I said, put on another Reaper, or you can put on, Outreach, however you want to divvy it out. But the reason I have Font of Restoration on here is because I'm doing activities outside of the Nether Arena also. So recovery is important to me. Getting my health back as fast as possible also makes me virtually unkillable on top of all the extra resistances I'm going to have because of how we've got it set up. So that is the build. While I was doing a build test for this video, I decided to go get myself a secret chest drop in the Vow of Disciple raid. So I actually used this build to get through those first couple of waves of enemies. So I'm going to feature that here in my build test and just kind of talk about what you're seeing. If you do find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing as always. Otherwise, if this is a video that resonated with you and you think there's other Guardians out there that could benefit from it, please consider sharing it with them. You're going to see this build is just too powerful. Hopefully you guys like this build and can use it to your benefit anywhere in the system. So as you can see, I loaded into Vow of Disciple. This is the opening encounter. The first part of this, which is what I wanted to share with you guys, is just going to be kind of the back and forth that you're going to get from just using this bow. I encourage you to look at the left-hand side of the screen. You can see all of the different buffs that I've got procced. I got Amplified, Bolt Charge, Volatile rounds. You can see the cooldowns flashing on the screen. You can see pretty much everything in real time. You also notice that my super energy is already half full, and I've literally only been firing at one enemy. I'm proccing the poison, which is hitting other enemies on the side when they get close enough to this major enemy. And you can also see I'm not really hurting for ability energy, as I pretty much got all the abilities back in that one instance. Here is a great demonstration of what you can expect when you're firing at multiple enemies using all of your abilities, including your super. You're going to constantly get your ability regenerated at a rapid rate. You're going to be able to proc Volatile. You're going to be stunning pretty much everything, or poisoning everything, or piercing everything. And honestly, you're not going to find a more complete Arc Titan build out there. And this is one of those builds where you're going to be able to take advantage of so many different aspects of this build. You're not going to almost know where you want to go next. So make sure you kind of have a plan of how you want to play with this build so that you can use it as efficiently as possible. And you'll notice, still again, no ability problems whatsoever. So if this build does resonate with you, please try it out in real time, pass it on to a Guardian who could help, who could benefit from the help. And guys, I will see you next time. Hopefully you liked this build. Take care now.